Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sharp Psych. As you may know, depression affects a substantial amount of people globally. It is characterized by non-stop feelings of regret, sadness, desperation, hopelessness, and a lack of passion in activities that were once enjoyable. Depression can distract our everyday life, making it problematic for us to work, study, or maintain relationships. While there are many factors that can contribute to the development of depression, including environmental and psychological factors, recent research has shown that genetics may also play a role. In this video, we'll be exploring the link between genetics and depression and the treatment and prevention of the disorder. So, whether you're someone who's been affected by depression or you're simply interested in learning more about this complex mental health disorder, make sure you watch this video until the end to find out more. But before we get into it, check out the links in the description for my best recommendations, and don't forget to subscribe. While the exact causes of depression are not fully understood, researchers have identified various risk factors that contribute to the development of depression, including genetics. Studies have shown that depression tends to run in families, suggesting a genetic component to the disorder. In fact, researchers have estimated that genetic factors may account for up to 40 to 50% of the risk of developing depression. So, what exactly do we mean by genetics? Our genes are responsible for controlling the characteristics that we inherit from our parents, such as eye color and height. They also play a role in controlling the way our body functions, including the brain. Genetic variations can influence the way we respond to different experiences and stressors, including those that may lead to depression. Studies have shown that there are specific genes that are associated with depression. One of the main well-known genes linked to depression is the serotonin transporter gene, which regulates the availability of serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that is involved in regulating mood, among other things. Another gene linked to depression is the COMT gene, which plays a role in the breakdown of certain neurotransmitters in the brain. These neurotransmitters are responsible for transmitting signals between brain cells and are important for regulating mood, sleep, and other vital functions. Research has identified several genes that are involved in the regulation of neurotransmitters, such as serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These genes have been linked to an increased risk of developing depression, as well as a decreased response to certain treatments. Another way that genes can influence depression is through their impact on the stress response system. The stress response system is a complex network of biological processes that are involved in our body's response to stress. Studies have shown that certain genes involved in this system can increase the risk of developing depression, particularly in response to stressful life events. Additionally, research has suggested that genes can also influence the way that individuals respond to environmental stressors. For example, one study found that individuals with a certain genetic variation were more likely to develop depression in response to early life stressors, such as childhood abuse or neglect. The latest research suggests that genes can influence the regulation of neurotransmitters, the stress response system, and an individual's response to environmental stressors, all of which can increase the risk of developing depression. However, it's important to remember that genetics is just one factor in the development of depression, and further research is needed to fully understand the complex interplay between genes and environment in the onset and progression of the disorder. So, we're going to dive into the genetic risk factors for depression. Studies have found that people with a family history of depression are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop depression themselves than those without a family history. That's significant, right? But it's not just about having a family history of depression. The degree of genetic risk for depression also appears to be influenced by the number of genes involved. Studies have shown that people with a higher number of genes linked to depression are at a greater risk of developing the disorder. That means there may be a cumulative effect of genetic risk factors for depression. But wait, before you get too worried, it's important to note that having a genetic risk factor for depression does not mean that someone will definitely develop the disorder. It's a combination of both nature and nurture that can lead to depression. Now, let's talk about how environmental factors interact with genetic factors to increase or decrease the risk of depression. For example, another research has found that early life stress, such as childhood abuse or neglect, can increase the risk of developing depression in people with a genetic predisposition to the disorder. But on the other hand, research has also shown that certain environmental factors can have a protective effect against depression in people with a genetic predisposition to the disorder. For example, a supportive and stable family environment can help reduce the risk of depression in people with a family history of the disorder. So, it's not just about the bad things that can happen to us, but also the good things that can help us prevent depression. Now that we know more about the genetics of depression, what does this mean for treatment? One of the biggest implications is that genetic testing can potentially help doctors identify which medications and therapies may be most effective for a particular individual. Studies have shown that certain genetic variations can affect how a person responds to different antidepressant medications. For example, the gene response for producing the enzyme CYP2D6 can impact how the body metabolizes certain antidepressants, such as fluoxetine or paroxetine. If a person has a variation in this gene that causes it to produce less of the enzyme, they may have a slower metabolism of the medication, which can lead to higher blood levels of the drug and an increased risk of side effects. On the other hand, if the gene produces more of the enzyme, the medication may be metabolized more quickly, potentially leading to a decreased effectiveness. It's important to note that genetic testing for depression is not yet a routine part of clinical practice, and more research is needed to fully understand how genetic variations impact treatment outcomes. However, as our understanding of the genetics of depression continues to grow, it's possible that genetic testing could become a more common tool in the treatment of this illness. Now, let's talk about the concept of personalized approaches to treatment. One of the key takeaways from the research on genetics and depression is that not all individuals with depression will respond to the same treatment in the same way. Personalized approaches take into account an individual's unique genetic makeup, as well as other factors such as their medical history and lifestyle, to develop a treatment plan tailored specifically to that person. For example, certain genetic variations may make an individual more or less responsive to a particular medication, or more susceptible to certain side effects. By understanding these genetic factors, healthcare providers can make more informed decisions about which medications to prescribe and at what dosage. Additionally, personalized approaches may include non-pharmacological treatments, such as psychotherapy, exercise, and lifestyle modifications. For example, individuals with certain genetic variations may benefit more from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, compared to other forms of psychotherapy. In addition to treating depression, preventing it from developing in the first place is crucial for overall mental health. Early intervention and prevention strategies can help identify and address potential risk factors before they lead to depression. The first step in prevention is identifying the risk factors for depression. These can include genetic predisposition, life events, chronic stress, and certain medical conditions. By recognizing these factors, individuals and healthcare providers can take proactive steps to manage them and reduce the risk of developing depression. Screening for depression is an important step in early intervention and prevention. Healthcare providers can use various screening tools to assess an individual's risk for depression, such as questionnaires and interviews. These screenings can identify depression symptoms before they become more severe, allowing for earlier intervention and treatment. Educating individuals and communities about depression and its risk factors is another important strategy for prevention. This can include raising awareness about the signs and symptoms of depression, as well as providing information on healthy coping mechanisms and support resources. Psychotherapy and counseling can be effective interventions for individuals at risk for depression. These approaches can help individuals develop healthy coping mechanisms, build resilience, and address any underlying issues that may contribute to depression. Lifestyle changes can also play a role in preventing depression. Regular exercise, healthy eating habits, and adequate sleep have all been shown to improve mental health and reduce the risk of depression. Additionally, mindfulness practices such as meditation and yoga can help reduce stress and promote emotional well-being. In conclusion, while genetics is a significant factor in the development of depression, it's not the only factor, and environmental factors also play a crucial role. The interaction between genetics and the environment is thought to be a key factor in the development of the disorder, and understanding this interaction can help to identify people who may be at an increased risk of developing depression and to develop more effective prevention and treatment strategies. Thanks for watching, and we hope this video has been informative and helpful to you. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.